Hello and welcome to part 4 of the NativShark Starter Guide. We're on our second day of studies today, so let's open up NativShark and check out our My Journey page. Here it shows that I have one review to do today since I only saw one example sentence yesterday. You may have a different amount of reviews to do depending on how many units you did yesterday. And if you archived any sentences by toggling off anything at the bottom of the lessons, those also will not show up in your reviews. Either way, let's click the Study Now button to get started. Since I have reviews to do, the Study Now button will take me there first. And since it's our first review session, Overlay-chan here will pop up and greet us. Since you're here with me, feel free to skip this. I'll go over it all. All right, here we are in our reviews. Reviews are where we take another look at sentences we've seen in the past. Sentences are shown to us based on when we first saw them and our answers to them in previous reviews. So here we have the word we saw yesterday. Go ahead and try to give this a read and see if you can recall what it means. Also, you can choose to play the audio by clicking on either of these buttons here. Oh, and as we go, I'll mention some keyboard shortcuts in case you're studying with a keyboard available. So to play both of these pieces of audio, you can press R on your keyboard as well. Note that the autoplay is off by default, but you can adjust this in your study settings. I like having autoplay on in my personal studies, but you should do what works best for you. When you're ready to reveal the backside of the card, you can hit Show Answer or press the spacebar. I generally recommend spending no longer than about 30 seconds on any given review card. Once we start getting a steady number of reviews, that time will really add up, and we want to make sure we have time to see new units as well. So let's hit Show Answer. And here we see our target word when applicable, the translation for our target word, and the translation for the entire sentence. Sometimes there are a few acceptable translations, so we might separate things by like a double slash like we see here. Also, translations can vary depending on context, and we always aim for natural translations on NativShark, so things aren't always going to be one-to-one. To help keep things easier to understand and break down, we also include the literal translation here alongside this every word section, which you may find useful once you start to get into longer sentences. Since this is a lesson sentence, the lesson where it came from is shown here. And you can click on this to view the lesson summary or to go check out the lesson again. All right, just a few more things. Here you can see that this is a formal sentence. We'll get fully into formality levels in later lessons, but this is a great way to get a quick reminder on any sentence. You can also see how many reviews you have left just above that. And then we have these buttons way at the bottom. So the X here closes your reviews. This box archives the review, right? You won't see it again. And then the backpack here adds it to a review set if you want to practice something specifically outside of the NativShark Study Now button. More info about all that in the description. There's also this question mark, which has hiragana and katakana tables if you want to reference those throughout your early studies. We also have an image you can download below. Personally, I set my phone and computer wallpapers to a similar image when I was learning Kana, and it was nice to get a quick review whenever I opened up my phone or computer. All right, last 3 buttons. First, we have the crying face. This is your emergency button. If you feel like you've never seen this sentence in your life before, then you might consider hitting this button. You can press 1 to hit this button as well. Next, we have the neutral face button. This one is for when it feels kind of familiar, but maybe you didn't exactly get the gist of the translation. This one is number 2 on your keyboard. Finally, we have the smiley face button. This is the button that 99.99% of NativShark learners should be pressing 99.99% of the time. This is number 3 or the spacebar on your keyboard. As to why the smiley face should be your default answer, well, reviews are reminders, not tests. So it's not really a big deal if you forgot this or remembered it. What's really important is that you showed up, attempted to recall it, and then saw the translations so you can remember it better in the future. From there, it's just do that until your reviews are done, then doing more new units and seeing more new Japanese. And since NativShark builds upon itself, you'll see all of this again in those new units in new contexts as well. So no need to worry. Also, once you get into native materials, those will become great review and learning tools for Japanese that's relevant to you in your personal studies. But more on that in the next part of this guide. So yeah, probably best to press the smiley face here and complete our reviews. お疲れ様です。 Now we're back on the My Journey page. So if you look at your days studied, you'll see your counter has gone up because you completed your reviews. Whenever you do your first 5 reviews, your days studied counter will go up. If you had less than 5 reviews to do today, completing them will cause the counter to go up as well. If you have no reviews to do, just hitting the Study Now button and seeing new learning content will also make this counter go up. Anyway, the minimum to increase your days studied counter is intentionally low because life happens and sometimes we're just too busy or our schedules are too hectic to really get in a good day's worth of studies. So yeah, while it's definitely a good thing to study as long and often as practical, sometimes all we have the brain power for or time for is just a few minutes of reviews. And that's still a victory because we keep some amount of Japanese fresh in our brains. Also, I think you'll find it easier to keep going once you start. So sure, when your schedule is busy, plan for a 2-minute review session, but let it turn into 10 minutes if you can. But overall, don't feel bad if all you can do every now and then is the minimum. The path to a high level of proficiency is paved with consistency, not how perfect any given day is. All right, let's press the Study Now button and see some new Japanese. So we'll start with some new kana again today. Keep in mind you can click on the pictures to listen to the kana. And if you're familiar with this kana, you can also hit skip this set down here as well. Okay, go on through this and I'll see you when you're done. Once this kana set is done, we'll land in a new lesson. And we see that this lesson is about gomen nasai. And it introduces a handful of new kana as well. Notice in these pictures, we don't see here because we saw it in a previous word, sumimasen. Go ahead, take your time with this, listen to the audio to support your understanding, and don't worry too much about getting anything perfectly memorized here yet. We're just getting an introduction. And once you reach the end of the lesson, don't forget you can toggle off some of these sentences to keep your reviews a bit lower if you want to. All right, give this a read and I'll see you in a bit. All right, next we have another message from Nico, the president and lead content writer of NativShark. What he says is a great reason to not worry about memorizing things perfectly. If something is important, we'll reintroduce it to you throughout NativShark and you'll see it plenty in the wild as well. So no worries, let's hit OK and keep moving. Now we see our first dialogue. Dialogues are natural Japanese conversations that appear at the end of units from here on out. Dialogues are full of the Japanese you've seen on NativShark, but it's put into different contexts to help you understand how Japanese is used out in the wild. If you want to practice your speaking ability and getting your tongue used to all the sounds, these are great to repeat out loud. Or you can practice making your own sentences by trying to continue the conversations. I often find myself repeating dialogues and reviews when I'm feeling really motivated, but I usually treat this as a kind of bonus activity rather than something I plan to do every single day. Treating it this way helps make it a bit easier for me to show up and study consistently. So experiment and adjust based on what works best for you. Anyway, let's take a look at this dialogue. So here we can see the title, which presents the situation to us. Again, context can change the meaning of Japanese words and sentences a good amount, so it's a good idea to look at the title before listening to the dialogue. Once you've read that title, the situation, go ahead and press the start button right over here.
すいません。
ごめんなさい。
And once it's done playing, we can click on translation to check our understanding. Don't worry if the translations here don't exactly line up with what you thought they might be. All that really matters is the gist. Translating in any language is an art, but that's especially true with English and Japanese because they're just such different languages from each other. So if you're kind of close, that's perfect. If not, that's also fine. Feel free to read through everything again, and you can also listen to the individual sentences by clicking on the adjacent play buttons, or listen to the whole dialogue again by hitting restart right here. I find that whenever I'm a bit confused about a dialogue, it's helpful to read everything once and then check out the translations and then just hit restart and listen to the whole dialogue again. And maybe I'll do that once or twice until I feel comfortable. Once you're all set, you can hit the next button up here to complete the dialogue. That will end this unit and put us back on the My Journey page. Before we do anything else, there's one final thing to talk about. So every time you do a new unit, you'll have reviews from that unit to do the next day. So more new units means more reviews. Looking here, we can see how many reviews we have to do tomorrow. So I have 3 reviews to do tomorrow. And you'll see another number right next to that. For me, it's 50. That 50 is my review threshold. The review threshold helps make your average study time in NativShark more consistent by trying to prevent you from being overwhelmed with too many reviews on any single day. Since my reviews to do tomorrow are less than my threshold, I can click Study Now and start a new unit. If I was at my review threshold or over my review threshold, I would not be able to click Study Now to do a new unit because more new units would put me further over the review threshold. Generally speaking, the faster you go through NativShark by doing more units per day, the more reviews you also have to do per day. If you want to go faster, say you're not a beginner, there are a few approaches you might want to take. First, you can archive cards you're completely comfortable with, and that will help keep daily reviews down. Remember, you can hit the toggle at the end of lessons, you can hit the box during reviews, or you can hit A during reviews if you have the keyboard available. Pressing the smiley face also helps keep reviews to a minimum. So if you're pressing the crying face a lot, you're gonna have a lot of reviews to do. And again, spending too much time in reviews generally isn't as productive as seeing new Japanese. So this is why we recommend having the smiley face as your default button. You can also adjust your review threshold, which would let you do more reviews every day. Be sure to choose a number that you can maintain consistently over a long period of time, rather than one that you're really struggling to keep up with. Alrighty, so feel free to do more units or log off for the day, whatever you have the time and brain power for. In the next part of this guide, we'll cover a few key things we want to keep in mind throughout our studies, along with what to expect throughout our journey with NativShark. I'll see you there.
この番組はフューチャーラーニングメソッドネイティブシャークがお送りしました。